You're getting closer and closer to the 2025 NFL draft, and already on this channel, I've regraded the 24 draft, regraded the 2023 NFL draft, so today, I wanted to regrade the 2022 NFL draft. A really good first round so far. But like always, and like every draft, there's going to be some hits, there's going to be some misses, and let me know how you would grade your favorite team's first round pick from the 2022 draft so far, now that we've seen them play 3 years in the NFL. And if you do enjoy the videos, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. So we're going to start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had the #1 overall pick in this draft. And it wasn't a slam dunk pick. There wasn't a huge consensus for a #1 player in this class just because of the lack of quarterbacks in the 2022 draft. So they ended up taking Treylon Walker out of Georgia, which felt like a surprise at the time. And although Walker has been a productive player over the last 2 years, I'm giving this pick a C+, just because they could have taken any of these studs that went at #2, #3, or #4, and they opted for probably the worst player in the top 4 of this draft. Walker did get off to a rough start in his NFL career. He appeared in 15 games as a rookie back in 2022, where he had just 3.5 sacks. He had 49 total tackles. But over the last 2 years, where he's transitioned to more of a defensive end role and a pure on pass rusher, he had 10 sacks in 2023, 52 tackles, and he also had 10 tackles for loss. And this past season, he had another double-digit sack season, 10.5 sacks in 2024. His first 2 years, though, didn't grade out the best in the world. And for someone that was drafted #1 overall, you're going to be held to a high standard. So what he's done so far has probably been B+ production. But since Treylon Walker was the #1 overall pick in this draft class, the Jaguars took Treylon Walker over everybody else. I gotta hold him to a higher standard. That's why I'm bringing it at a C+, because I do think he has been a good player so far, and he maybe is one of the more underrated pass rushers in the NFL, playing on that defensive line with Joshua Hines-Allen. I just think the Jaguars could have taken some better talent that went after him. That's not any slight on Walker. That's more so on the Jaguars front office. Because funny enough, Trent Baalke now is no longer here, as we all know, for what happened with him and Liam Cohen this offseason for the Jags. And it hurts a little bit more that somebody that plays a similar position went #2 to the Detroit Lions and has been better than Walker, and that is Aiden Hutchinson, who went #2 overall out of Michigan. He was a Heisman finalist in that 2021 college season, and this pick has been an A+ so far for the Detroit Lions. Although Hutchinson did suffer a season-ending injury this year throughout 5 games, he was one of, if not the best pass rusher and defender in the NFL before he went down. He had 7.5 sacks throughout 5 games. In his rookie season, he finished runner-up in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. He had 9.5 sacks that year and 3 interceptions as a 22-year-old. In year #2 in 2023, 11.5 sacks. He was a Pro Bowler, 14 tackles for loss, had an interception as well. He has been graded out as one of the best edge rushers in the NFL since he got drafted, and this was a home run pick by the Detroit Lions, and they were very lucky that Hutchinson fell into their laps at #2 and didn't go #1 like we all expected him to after that monster year he had at Michigan. So this is an A+ by far for the Lions, taking one of the best pass rushers in the NFL at #2, and I'm excited to see him fully healthy again next year for this Lions defense. And it's cool to watch these players develop over time, because if I regraded the 2022 draft after their first years, Derek Stingley at #3 could have been a C grade or maybe even something lower than that. But this pick has definitely been an A so far, as Stingley has now transformed into one of the best corners in the NFL over the last 2 years after having a really rocky start to his professional career. Stingley as a rookie was one of the worst graded corners in the NFL for a bad Houston Texans team that didn't have a lot going for them. And then we know how much the 23 draft changed them when they got CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, both in the top 3. But Stingley in 2023 and in 2024, with the Texans improving with their defensive unit under new head coach DeMeco Ryans, has really turned his career around and turning into one of the best coverage corners in the NFL. Last year, Stingley had 5 interceptions in what felt like a breakout year throughout 11 games because he was dealing with an injury. And this year, Stingley ended up on an all-pro first team in year #3 as a 23-year-old, 5 interceptions, 37 solo tackles, 54 combined tackles. He only allowed 42 catches for 444 yards this year and had an opponent quarterback rating of 57 against them this year. Like I said, one of the best coverage corners in the NFL, is still just 23 years old, and this is an A pick for the Houston Texans. And although he did have a down year this year for the New York Jets compared to his elite first 2 years in the league, I'm giving Sauce Gardner at #4 an A still. This is still one of the best picks in this draft. The Jets had a phenomenal 2022 first round. We'll get to their other pick in a little bit, but Sauce Gardner as a rookie was on all-pro first team. You don't normally see that. He was one of, if not the best coverage corner in the NFL that year in 2022, and he obviously won Defensive Rookie of the Year. He had 20 pass deflections, which led the NFL. He had a 62 passer rating against, and while that has gone up over the last 2 years, Gardner was still an all-pro in 2023. It did feel like he had a down year relative to those first 2 years this year for the Jets, but the Jets had so many issues as a team defense as a whole this year, with Robert Saleh getting fired. Jeff Ulbrich ended up becoming the head coach. Now he's left this offseason, but either way, Gardner has still been a home run pick for the Jets at number 4. They got the second best corner in the draft at the time because Stingley was looked at as like the consensus cornerback 1. Either way, it didn't matter. They got an absolute stud at number 4, and I expect Sauce Gardner to bounce back in year number 4. The Giants at number 5 took the third edge rusher in this class. They took Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon, who at one point did have some hype to go number 1 overall in this draft. I'm going to give this pick for them a B-. It's definitely a drop-off from the Aiden Hutchinson pick that the Lions were able to get at number 2, but they could have definitely taken a worse player that we'll get to for the New York Giants in a little bit. But Thibodeaux, as a rookie, had 4 sacks in 14 games. He finished 4th in the Defensive Rookie of the Year voting, and then broke out in year number 2. He had 11.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 4 pass deflections for the Giants, and 50 total tackles with 16 QB hits. And this year, his numbers did go down for the G-Men, but their defensive unit as a whole went down, even though he's playing with some studs on that defensive line, like Brian Burns, who they got last offseason, and Dexter Lawrence, who is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. But Thibodeaux was banged up this year, only appeared in 12 games, and it seems like he's more active on Twitter than he is on the football field. So I'm going to give this a B-. It's about to be a big year 4 for Kayvon, because if he doesn't perform, I don't know if he's going to make it through another contract on the New York Giants. At number 6, the Panthers took the first offensive player in this draft class. They took Ekwonu, the offensive tackle out of NC State, to protect whoever their next quarterback was going to be. It didn't work out with Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, and we know that they took Bryce Young in the 23 draft. I'm going to give this pick a B-. Through the first 2 years, it was a little rough for Ekwonu, who definitely felt like he was an inconsistent as an offensive tackle for this team, especially for somebody that was drafted 6th overall in this loaded positional class. But I think this year showed some real progression for this Panthers team on the offensive line and helped out. He's playing with Robert Hunt, who got paid a ton of money in the offseason as well. And I expect this Panthers offensive line to continue to improve, with Ekwonu getting better and better every single year. I think he's going to get another contract by the Panthers. I'm just giving this a B- because of the production he has given so far, but I do expect if I was making this type of video a year from now, this grade would look better. But at number 7, we are going to give our worst grade so far. The New York Giants took Evan Neal, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. I'm giving this a D. Andrew Thomas did struggle after his first year for the New York Giants, but then turned into one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. It never really happened for Evan Neal, who was abysmal in his rookie year. He was graded as the 80th ranked offensive tackle out of 81. Same thing happened in year number 2. It felt like he got worse in year number 2 and didn't take strides to improve. And this year was a little bit better. Definitely had the best year of his career, but was banged up. I also felt like he was trying to go back and forth with the fans as the Giants just had another disastrous season, and it doesn't feel like he's going to be a franchise offensive tackle for this team. He came in to be on the other side of this offensive line with Andrew Thomas and protect Daniel Jones, and it just feels like he hasn't done his job, that he was drafted 7th overall in this draft to do so. And this was the Chicago Bears first round pick that the Giants got in the Justin Fields trade down the prior draft. And this is about to be a massive year 4 for Evan Neal, because if he doesn't work out, I don't even know if they're going to pick up his 5th year option. We had our first skill position player go at number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons, and that was Drake London. I think it was a little bit of a shocker that London was the first receiver off the board. There could have been a couple different options here at number 8 for Atlanta, but I'm going to give this an A. Drake London has been one of the best young receivers in the NFL since he got drafted, and that's with really poor quarterback play. In 2022, he had 72 catches for 866 yards and 4 touchdowns, with Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota throwing him the football. And then in year number 2, he either had Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder throwing him the football as well, and he had 69 catches for 905 yards. But this year, with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins, definitely the best quarterback play he has gotten so far. He posted career highs in targets at 158, career high in receptions at 100, career high in reception yards at 1,721 and a career high in touchdowns with 9 this season, as London is still 23 years old and he looks like a true wide receiver 1 in this league, and I'm very excited to watch him and Michael Penix for years to come. The Seattle Seahawks took an offensive lineman at number 9, Charles Cross out of Mississippi State, and I'm going to give this pick a B+ for them. Cross did struggle out of the gate like Evan Neal and like Ekwonu, but he has gotten better and better in every year of his career, and he just posted an elite offensive tackle season for the Seattle Seahawks team. Is now looking like a true cornerstone piece for this offensive line, which was abysmal as a whole, but is going to be a safe spot for them going forward, either if it's for Geno Smith or their next franchise quarterback, as Cross was graded out as the 9th graded offensive tackle in the NFL out of 81. I talked about Evan Neal being graded as number 80, a big difference here with Cross, who was on the board for the Giants, and they opted to take Evan Neal, who just hasn't worked out for that team, but Charles Cross has worked out for the Seattle Seahawks. Looks like he's going to get a nice payday as an offensive tackle in this league if he could replicate what he did in 24 in 2025, and I'm giving this a B+ for Seattle. The Jets had a home run 2022 draft. They took 2 studs in this class. They got the defensive rookie of the year that we talked about before in Sauce Gardner, and they took the offensive rookie of the year from this class at number 10 in Garrett Wilson. This pick is getting an A+. Garrett Wilson has been a 1,000-yard receiver every year of his career. Like I said, got offensive rookie of the year in that 2022 season, where he had Zach Wilson throwing him the football, where he had 83 catches for 1,103 yards and 4 touchdowns. He followed that season up with 95 catches, 1,042 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And this year, with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football, he had 154 targets, 101 receptions, and 1,100 reception yards and 7 touchdowns in what felt like a down year for Garrett Wilson. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL as a 24-year-old, and he's about to get a massive payday from the Jets in a year from now, as he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for this team for the next 5+ years. The Saints took a receiver right after the Jets did at number 11, and they took Chris Olave, Wilson's teammate at Ohio State. Wow, loaded class for the Buckeyes there at number 11. I'm going to give this pick a B+. Now, I don't think Olave has been as good as Wilson so far. He finished 4th in Rookie of the Year voting for this team. In his rookie year, he had Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston throwing him the football, where he did post 72 receptions for 1,042 yards and 4 touchdowns. He followed that up with a really good year number 2, 138 targets, 87 catches, 1,123 yards. But this year, his 2024 season was cut short. Derek Carr didn't really do all that well as the starting quarterback, but he was banged up. So then there was Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler throwing him the football, and Olave's career has been decimated by concussion so far, which is really scary going forward. I don't know if he's going to be a Saint after this offseason. There is a chance he could end up getting traded, but either way, I do hope that Olave does not have another concussion in his career, because if he does, his career could definitely be cut short, because he's had a ton so far. At number 12, Detroit traded up almost 20 spots to take Jameson Williams, the receiver out of Alabama. Definitely a little bit of a shocker when it happened on draft night. I'm going to give this a B-, as Williams was banged up in his first year in the league, and then he also received a suspension for gambling, so there's been some on-the-field stuff that has limited Williams' career, and some off-the-field stuff as well. But in his rookie season, he had 1 catch for 41 yards. In year number 2, last year, he had 24 catches for 354 yards. It wasn't until year 3, this most recent season in 2024, where Jameson Williams broke out. He had 58 catches for 1,000 yards on the year, 7 receiving touchdowns. He also had a little bit of involvement in the rushing game as well, and was used as a gadget receiver for this Detroit Lions offense under Ben Johnson, and is a nice wide receiver too in this league. I think just the fact that the Lions traded up all that they did to go get Jameson Williams, and I'm not sure if they're going to extend him. That's going to be an interesting storyline to keep an eye on. But either way, Williams has been serviceable and was a good wide receiver too for the best offense in football in 2024. The Philadelphia Eagles took a Georgia Bulldog here at number 13. No surprise to that. And they took Jordan Davis, the defensive lineman. And I think this has been a solid pick for the Eagles. I'm going to give it a B. He's definitely been overshadowed by the other Georgia defensive lineman that they took in the 23 draft in Jalen Carter. But Davis has been solid for the Eagles so far in his 3-year career. He's been pretty consistent every single year. He started 5 games as a rookie, but appeared in 13 games, started all 17 games in 23, where he had 2.5 sacks, 45 total tackles, 5 QB hits, and this past year started all 17 games as well for one of the best defensive line units in the NFL and just won a Super Bowl for this team. I'm not sure if they are able to win a Super Bowl without Jordan Davis. I'd assume they would still be able to get it done, but either way, this is a solid pick. He's a good defensive lineman, and I do wonder if they're going to be able to afford all this talent on the defense in a few years. But as I was watching this draft, a player that kept falling and falling, and I don't know if you guys get this vibe sometimes, but there's a player in the class and you're like, how is he going this late? What are GMs thinking? And I'm not somebody that's in a front office, and I felt like Kyle Hamilton went way too low. And the fact that he went to the Baltimore Ravens, my favorite team's biggest rival, I was so upset because I'm like, they just got an absolute steal at pick 14. This is easy. An easy A+ pick by Baltimore. Since getting drafted, Kyle Hamilton has arguably been the best safety in the NFL out of the gate. He was the top graded safety as a rookie in 2022. In 2023, he was graded number 6 out of 95 safeties. And this past year, the second graded safety out of 98, according to PFF. He started to play a ton in year number 2, where he was an all-pro first team member as a 22-year-old. He had 4 interceptions, 13 pass deflections, a forced fumble, 3 sacks, and 81 total tackles, and was a Pro Bowler for the Baltimore Ravens. And this year was a Pro Bowler again, finished on All-Pro second team, 107 total tackles. He's one of the best tackling safeties in the game, and he is one of, and maybe the best coverage safety in the NFL as well. I still can't believe 3 years later, he fell to 14 to the Baltimore Ravens. They just got an absolute steal there, and they took the right player out of Notre Dame. The Houston Texans offensive line is really bad, and we all know that, and it didn't help with this pick here that they took at 15. Kenyan Green out of Texas A&M, the interior offensive lineman. This pick has been an F. It's been a disaster so far for the Houston Texans, where Green was really bad as a rookie. He was graded the worst offensive guard in the NFL, according to PFF. And then he did not play at all in 2023 due to injury. And this past year, coming off that injury, appeared in 12 games for the Texans and was arguably the worst offensive guard in the NFL again. And as we get further and further out from this player being a top 15 pick in the NFL draft, you're going to have less and less investment into the player as we get further out from them being a first round pick. So I don't even know if Kenyan Green is going to be on this team after this offseason. And this is one of the worst picks in the first round, so it's getting an F from me. But hey, don't worry, Texans fans, I'm going to give an F to the next pick here at number 16, and that's where the Washington Commanders took Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. Yeah, the same Jahan Dotson that just won a Super Bowl for Washington's division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. He only spent 2 years in Washington. In his first year, he appeared in 12 games. He had 35 catches and 523 yards. He was supposed to be this really good number 2 next to Terry McLaurin. It never really worked out. He had 49 catches for 518 yards for the Commanders in 2023, and then was traded away for a day 2 pick in the 2024 offseason. And he was basically a low usage wide receiver 3/4 for the Philadelphia Eagles throughout the 24 season. He did have some big catches in the playoffs. He had a touchdown against the Green Bay Packers during wildcard weekend. He almost had the first touchdown of the Super Bowl, and this pick just didn't work out whatsoever for the Washington Commanders. It was a pretty easy F to hand out. The LA Chargers took Zion Johnson out of Boston College, an interior offensive lineman, with the 17th pick in this draft. I'm going to give this pick a C. He's been a fine, a serviceable offensive lineman, and I think just Kenyan Green's F makes this pick look a little bit better, but they could have definitely taken a lot better talent that was on the board. And Kenyan Green has been inconsistent at times throughout the first 3 years in the NFL, but he has been available. He's only missed 2 games in his career so far. He's going to be going into year number 4. This is a completely different regime that drafted him, so they may hold a lesser connection to keeping Zion Johnson long term. So this is going to be a big year 4 for him just to decide his future on the LA Chargers. Can I give a pick an F-? Because that's what I'd like to give the Tennessee Titans, taking Treylon Burks at number 18. And this was the pick that they traded with the Philadelphia Eagles for when they sent A.J. Brown away. One of the best receivers in the NFL to take Treylon Burks, who was going to be much cheaper than A.J. Brown, but they took an absolute bust with this 18th overall pick. Treylon Burks, as a rookie, had 33 catches for 444 yards in the 2022 season, and then in 2023, 16 catches for 221 yards, and this year was banged up. He had 4 catches for 34 yards. 4 catches for 34 yards. That's what Treylon Burks, who is supposed to be the next A.J. Brown for this team, had in year number 3. It's an F- if I could give it one. So you had some really nice wide receiver picks at the top. Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, even Jameson Williams. And then there was definitely a drop off to Jahan Dotson and Treylon Burks. At number 19, the New Orleans Saints had 2 first-round picks, and they ended up taking Trevor Penning, the offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. I'm going to give this pick a C-. Penning had an encouraging rookie year, but it felt like he has peaked in his rookie year so far, and it's been going downhill since. And in the rookie year where he had his best year, he didn't play that many games. He only appeared in 6 games that season, and his last 2 full years as a starter has not been a good offensive tackle in this league. And for somebody that's getting to the end of that rookie contract, I don't even know if he's going to make it out of this offseason with a brand new head coach and for a team that definitely needs to shed some cap. So I've clowned on the Treylon Burks pick. I clowned on the Jahan Dotson pick, who just won a Super Bowl. Well, I'm going to clown on my favorite team's pick. And I will admit, I was excited when this happened, when the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 20 took Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. Well, it's an F. Kenny Pickett is no longer the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles last offseason and was the backup and took some snaps in the Super Bowl for the team that won it all. Yeah, Pickett, it was a disaster in Pittsburgh. The Steelers were desperately trying to find their next Ben Roethlisberger. And the first year without Big Ben, they invested a first-round pick in maybe the worst quarterback class we have seen in the 21st century. And Kenny Pickett spent 2 years in Pittsburgh. He did finish with a 14-10 record. Not too bad, but that's mainly because of how good the defense was then. It didn't help out that he had Matt Canada as his offensive coordinator, one of the worst coordinators in the NFL. But Pickett, as a rookie, threw for 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. 63% completion percentage. In year 2 in Pittsburgh, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 62% completion percentage. He was banged up at times. He got injured, and the Steelers only gave him 2 years. And I'm glad they cut it short after 2 years and they realized he wasn't going to be their franchise quarterback. But either way, it's an F. It's one of the worst picks here in the first round. But going from one of the worst picks in the first round of 20 to one of the best picks in the first round of 21, and this just makes the Pickett pick look so much worse because the Steelers have such bad corners, and they could have used the guy that went number 21 to the Kansas City Chiefs, Trent McDuffie. He's one of the best corners in the NFL. What a cornerback class this was with Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, and Trent McDuffie. So this McDuffie pick at 21 is easily an A+. He started 11 games for the Chiefs as a rookie, but in year number 2 is when he broke out to turn into one of the best coverage corners in the NFL, where he helped them win a safety as an All-Pro first team member in that 2023 season. He was on All-Pro second team this past year in 2024, and finally got the first couple interceptions of his career, and he's about to get paid a ton of money by this Chiefs defense, because I don't think it was the same over the last 3 years without McDuffie, who they stole here at 21 out of Washington. The Green Bay Packers took Quay Walker out of Georgia here at 22. I'm going to give this pick a C. Walker's been a fine linebacker for the Packers over the last 3 years. He had 121 tackles as a rookie, 118 in year number 2, and this past year 102 tackles for this team. But they took Edgerrin Cooper out of UNC in the 24 draft, and I think they're way more excited about him going forward. So I don't think Walker is going to get another contract for this Packers team, and I think they'd like to have this first round pick over again, but it could have been a far worse pick. There's far worse players that went after Quay. Like the player out of the secondary that went number 23 out of Florida to the Buffalo Bills, Kaiir Elam. Yeah, this pick is going to get a D+ from me. As Kaiir Elam, I think, showed some promise earlier in his career, but I think the chances of him being a cornerback 1 in this league, at least for the Buffalo Bills, have definitely dwindled. He did not play well in the playoffs for this team, and he has now looked like a cornerback 1 in this league. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on this pick since it was later in the first round, but for just a draft so far where we've had 3 stud corners go, and then we get to Kaiir Elam, it's going to hurt the pick grade a little bit. The Dallas Cowboys took Tyler Smith, the interior offensive lineman, at 24 out of Tulsa. We recently had some bad interior offensive linemen go, like Kenyan Green or maybe Zion Johnson. Tyler Smith's been a good pick. He's been very consistent in his career so far. I'm giving this pick a B+ for the Dallas Cowboys, as Smith has been available ever since he got drafted. 17 games as a rookie, 14 games last year, and was on All-Pro second team as a sophomore in this league, and was a Pro Bowler in 2023, and then was a Pro Bowler again in 2024, where he started 16 games for the Dallas Cowboys, whose offensive line has been banged up, and it has looked very different since the golden days of Zach Martin, Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, and those guys from the 2010s. But Tyler Smith has done his job ever since he got drafted at pick 24. I talked about about how the Baltimore Ravens had one of the best picks in the draft at number 14, where they took Kyle Hamilton. Maybe not a super valuable position in talks about going high in the draft at safety. Well, they took another interior offensive lineman here at 25, a center, which isn't looked very highly, but hey, it's worked out for some teams in the past, like Zach Frazier or Jackson Powers-Johnson going high in the draft. Well, they took Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa at 25. This is an A pick. He's been one of the best centers in the NFL since he got drafted, and he has been the most consistent offensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens. And this was the pick that they got in the Hollywood Brown trade from the Arizona Cardinals. So this pick is just looking even better, and getting Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum both in the first round in this draft is making the Ravens look so good today. Just hitting on these draft picks can really pay dividends a few years later. At 26, the New York Jets had their third first round pick here, and they took Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. I'm going to give this pick a B. Jermaine Johnson broke out in year number 2 in the 23 season, where he was a Pro Bowler. He had 7.5 sacks, 7 pass deflections, a forced fumble, and also a pick 6, but he was banged up in the 24 season, only appeared in 2 games. So I'm going to give this pick a B. But honestly, just getting Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, and Jermaine Johnson, they went 3 for 3 in the first round in this draft. What kind of feels like a better pick in the first round for the Jacksonville Jaguars was the player they took at 27 compared to the pick at number 1, and that is Devin Lloyd out of Utah. I think this is an A. I think Devin Lloyd has been an absolute beast so far, and he's probably who the Packers should have taken instead of Quay Walker at 22. Devin Lloyd has been healthy and available so far. He started 15 games but appeared in 17 for the Jaguars as a rookie. He also had 3 interceptions in his rookie season, 115 combined tackles. In year 2, he had 127 combined tackles, started 15 games, only missed 2 of them, and then this past year only missed 1 game. He got an interception, and he got the first 2 sacks of his career as well, and I think is somebody that is going to get paid a lot of money by this Jaguars team going forward. The Packers had 2 first-round picks, and they took Devontae Wyatt here at number 28 out of Georgia. I think this pick was slightly better than Quay Walker. I'm giving it a B-, as Wyatt has done a good job as an interior defensive lineman. He had 5.5 sacks in year number 2 in the NFL, and he just had 5 sacks yet again for the Green Bay Packers, and has been a powerhouse defensive tackle for this team since they drafted him, and I think this pick was slightly better than Quay Walker, although they do play different positions. At 29, the Pats took an interior offensive lineman out of Chattanooga. This was one of the final Bill Belichick first-round picks, and it was Cole Strange. Yep, this pick is going to be a D. I don't believe that Cole Strange is going to earn a second contract on this team, or at least he's not going to be in their long-term plans. I just don't understand this pick. It was just the pinnacle Bill Belichick pick towards the end of his Pats career, and Cole Strange has played nothing like a first-round pick so far. Just taking, somebody out of Chattanooga at pick 29 in the first round, an interior offensive lineman at that as well. I mean, what are we doing? At number 30, the Bengals took Dax Hill, the corner out of Michigan. I'm going to give this pick a D. Now, it does suck that Dax Hill tore his ACL this season, so there could be some time missed in year number 4 as well. But as his contract goes up and up, they did change his position as well from safety to corner. I just don't think he's worked out for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. But you can let me know, Bengals fans, am I being kind of harsh on this pick? And the last pick here in the first round at 31, since there was a forfeited pick in this draft, the Minnesota Vikings took Lewis Cine, the defensive back out of Georgia. This is an F, as we're year 3 of Cine's career, and he's not even on the Minnesota Vikings anymore. He spent his first 2 years in Minnesota as really a non-impact player for that team, only appearing in 10 games across those 2 years, and now he's a member of the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, this is one of the worst picks in this first round. It was not a good draft for Minnesota, as they had a ton of quantity in terms of draft picks, but not a lot of quality out of that quantity. So that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy me regrading the 2022 NFL draft. If you did, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you agree with or disagree with down below. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are not already, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.